Picture yourself walking through the magnificent entrance of a royal palace where crystal chandeliers cast brilliant light from above. Exquisite tapestries adorn every wall, yet there's something in the atmosphere you'd prefer not to inhale too deeply. Beneath the glittering tiaras, ornate dresses, and shining golden seats of power, the monarchs of bygone eras often harbored secrets that no amount of fragrance could completely mask. In times before modern bathrooms, daily washing and antiperspirants existed. Staying clean wasn't just uncommon, it was considered a privilege that many deliberately avoided, with certain queens earning notorious reputations for their approach to hygiene. Today, we're diving into the past to reveal the surprisingly filthy practices of four royal ladies whose personal aroma reportedly emptied rooms quicker than any royal command. These are monarchs who truly thought bathing might damage their health, who spent years in the same undergarments, and who relied on heavy perfumes, fresh blooms, and carefully dusted wigs to hide what lurked underneath. Get comfortable, brace yourself, and take a deep breath of fresh air. You'll want to as we journey back to a time when nobility dazzled with external magnificence, yet didn't always emit the most pleasant fragrances behind closed doors. Isabella, I of Castile, stood as one of Europe's most formidable rulers, the monarch who unified Spain and funded expeditions that transformed the globe. Yet beneath her royal headpiece lay a pledge that horrified even her closest servants. Throughout the concluding phase of the long Reconquista, the crusade to expel Muslim leaders from Spain, Isabella swore a holy oath. She would refuse to replace her linen underclothes until Granada, the final Islamic fortress, was conquered. Sound drastic? Absolutely. This wasn't a commitment measured in days or weeks. Her promise allegedly stretched across almost 10 years. Court attendants reportedly competed to avoid serving near her, and royal doctors pleaded with her to break her oath, terrified that disease might ravage the palace. When Granada eventually fell in 1492, the clothing she had continuously worn was supposedly so soaked with perspiration, dirt and age that it had grown rigid and stained. Some stories claim the garments were immediately incinerated as though they threatened public health, while others suggest they were momentarily exhibited as a symbol of dedication before someone determined the odor was unbearable. Regardless of which accounts are accurate or greatly embellished, Isabella's commitment to linking suffering with sanctity created a lasting impression, not only in historical records, but literally in the atmosphere of her royal residence. Now we move to 18th century France, where Marie Antoinette captivated society with extravagant dresses and impossibly tall hairstyles that appeared to challenge the laws of physics. Yet beneath the luxurious fashion and sparkling gems existed a reality far less attractive. Marie Antoinette did wash herself, though infrequently, and when she did, privacy was non-existent. Bathing became a major spectacle conducted in a chamber packed with assistants, servants, and occasionally nobility, all observing as the queen entered a copper basin covered with fabric. The water, perfumed with botanicals or citrus blossoms, created an appearance of sophistication, but these ceremonies occurred sporadically, perhaps once every several weeks at most. During typical days, the queen depended on cloths dampened with spirits or vinegar to clean her skin. Her famous hairstyles were constructed using animal grease and powder to maintain their extraordinary height, sometimes even adorned with tiny vessels or complex miniature displays. Washing her hair was impossible. It remained styled for weeks at a time. This meant parasites could become problematic, and stories spread that insects occasionally crawled into the hair of Versailles ladies while they rested. Monthly hygiene wasn't any better. Marie Antoinette utilized fabric strips that were cleaned and reused, though probably not completely. Without indoor plumbing and wearing multiple layers of fitted silk garments, discomfort and infections were frequent. The Palace of Versailles itself reeked terribly. Overflowing waste containers, insufficient restrooms, and dirty clothing all created such an overwhelming stench that fragrance became essential, not merely decorative. Marie Antoinette's existence may have shimmered with riches, but the hygiene standards of her time were far from lustrous. Elizabeth the Fine of England is celebrated as the exceptional ruler who guided England toward prosperity. Yet her cleanliness practices would astound modern people. During the 1500s, water was deemed hazardous. Medical professionals believed that bathing opened skin pores and permitted fatal diseases to enter. Consequently, most individuals, Elizabeth included, stayed away from washing their bodies. Instead, cleanliness meant fresh linens. Elizabeth was careful about switching her undergarments and gowns regularly, sometimes even each day, which made her appear remarkably clean by contemporary standards. However, changing clothing differed from actual washing. Complete baths occurred seldom, maybe monthly or even less frequently. When she did bathe, it became an elaborate ceremony. A copper vessel was delivered to the palace, heated water was added, and the queen would sit while her attendants carefully cleaned her with fabric soaked in rosewater or vinegar. No scrubbing, no cleansing agents, and definitely no solitude. Monthly care was basic too. Elizabeth used heavy cloth cushions called clouts, which were cleaned and reused frequently while still discolored. Restrictive corsets and multiple clothing layers made the situation even more unpleasant. Her female attendants were well aware of her cycles, though the topic remained unspoken, despite her magnificent reputation. Elizabeth, I faced the same difficulties as everyone in her era. Poor hygiene and an ongoing struggle to disguise unpleasant realities with fragrance and fancy clothing. Our last queen, Catherine de Medici of France, was much more than a royal spouse. She was a brilliant tactician, a clever negotiator, and among the most powerful women of the 1500s. Yet beyond her political brilliance, Catherine developed a unique reputation. She governed not merely through authority, but through aromatic clouds. Catherine harbored an intense dread of bathing. Like many of her peers, she believed that submerging in water might open skin pores and permit fatal illnesses to penetrate the body. This terror was so intense that she nearly completely avoided baths. Instead, she devised an approach that would characterize both her personal style and the entire French court's customs. She embraced fragrance, not as indulgence, but as daily protection rather than wash her skin. Catherine would cover herself with an incredible variety of perfumes. She was famous for saturating her body in rosewater, musk, ambergris, and other rare and potent scents brought from distant lands. These fragrances weren't lightly applied. Catherine wore them in such thick layers that her scent announced her arrival before she appeared. Her relationship with fragrance became almost ritualistic, and soon she transformed the craft of perfume making into a crucial element of court culture. One of her most celebrated creations was scented gloves. In an era when everyone bore the burden of unwashed garments and the smell of poor cleanliness, Catherine's fragrant gloves became a phenomenon throughout Europe. Made from quality leather and saturated in specially mixed oils, these gloves not only made hands smell wonderful, but also created a trail of fragrance around the wearer. It was Catherine's method of coping in an environment where offensive odors were constant, from nobles, perspiration-soaked clothes to their decaying teeth and untreated mouth. Diseases. Catherine's fragrance use wasn't solely for personal comfort. It also established expectations for the royal court. Her perfume cloud became a type of aromatic shield, protecting her from the foul atmosphere of palaces that were seldom cleaned and frequently overcrowded. Waste vessels regularly overflowed, bedding was rarely laundered, and clean air was scarce. Under such circumstances, perfume became more than a stylish accessory. It was a survival tool. Her impact on European style and culture was tremendous. Catherine de' Medici made fragrance equivalent to sophistication, grace, and even endurance. Those wanting to succeed in the refined world of the French court had no option but to copy her methods. Perfume manufacturers prospered, and the skill of combining oils, herbs, and flowers into intricate fragrances became a booming business. By the time Catherine had established her influence in France, She had also secured Perfume's position in European society. No longer viewed as a mere luxury, fragrance became vital for anyone hoping to survive the conditions of crowded royal living spaces. All of this originated from one queen's profound fear of water. Catherine de' Medici's influence extended beyond politics or diplomacy. She created a perfume legacy, a scented culture that would influence European fashion for generations. Her life demonstrated how even the smallest personal preference, in this instance avoiding water, could spread outward and transform her entire world. Can you picture existing in a time when cleansing yourself was considered harmful? Where fragrance replaced soap, and where the royal clothing you witnessed being changed daily was far cleaner than the person wearing it? These monarchs controlled enormous kingdoms, led military forces, and influenced historical events. Yet beneath the brilliant jewels and polished exteriors, they suffered the same unsanitary conditions as everyone else of their time. Palaces might have gleamed with gold, but the atmosphere frequently carried the thick smell of unwashed people, overflowing waste containers, and the persistent effort to cover it all with heavy, powerful fragrances. Life appeared luxurious on the surface, but remained difficult in reality, even for those holding the highest positions. History frequently presents us with images of grace and sophistication, but the reality is much more complex and occasionally quite startling. So consider this. Could you have survived even one day in such conditions without the conveniences of running water, soap, and contemporary hygiene?